Cheryl played the Brother, Sister, Can I Serve You? And some of the words in it were, we are pilgrims on a journey and companions on the road. We are here to help each other walk the mile and bear the load. Good morning and welcome to church this morning. In my growing up years, the elders and greeters at the front door would have met, chatted, and even introduced people during the service. How terrifying that would have been for some to stand up in the middle of a service to be introduced. Some didn't come back. Nonetheless, a welcome is very important in church, and a welcome just doesn't mean for new people. A welcome is an extension, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that. I read recently that a church's ongoing welcome should include what people are looking for to help them to find it, and then support their work in that. I wanted to say that the story in the newsletter was written by Kent Nurburn. I had a call from a couple of people during the week saying, "Great story, I didn't know you were a taxi driver. That's wonderful. If you haven't read it yet, please do have a look." But I can't take credit for the story, only the editing, as did Peter. So this week is the third week in a series of 6 called Life Through God's Eyes. Jeff Norman, who encouraged the study, delivered truth 2 weeks ago, and Pete Spears tickled us with forgiveness last week. If you like the series approach, then speak to a leadership team member. My name is Brian Plowman, and the theme of justice, if the theme of justice doesn't work today, it's my fault, because each of us chose our own themes. And also to be actually applied to life through God's eyes, or 2020 vision. This could be tough, as some of my so-called friends have reminded me that anything less than a passionate, motivating, and challenging sermon, unquote, is unacceptable. So our set, conceived and developed and made by the wonderful Gail Williams, is an optometrist's office, and so take time to thank her please sometime. In fact, if you haven't thanked someone in the church today already for something that they've done, then that's the first challenge of my sermon. So, a woman on the way to an optometrist's office saw a friend and declared, Guess who I bumped into today?" "Who?" replied the friend, thinking there's some great gossip coming. "Everyone," replied the first woman. "I can't see, that's why I'm going to the eye doctor." It's a funny story, but it reveals 2 things. First thing it reveals is that the woman recognized she had a problem. And the second thing is that she was doing something about it. My prayer is that you catch a glimpse of you through God's eyes in 2020. And you're able to see clearly a better way to serve. May my words and my thoughts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my sheltering rock and my Redeemer. So, justice. How, if ever, does God see you do justice? Or mercy? Don't fret, because the hidden subtitle of the series could probably be, Look at yourself through God's eyes, but don't be too hard on yourself. I say don't be too hard on yourself reservedly, because most of us are very unforgiving of self. Research tells us why. Most of us don't let mistakes go. We hold on. We focus on what we haven't accomplished rather than what we have. I should have done that better. I should have done this. They could have done this. Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? Instead of, that was good. That was smooth. That spoke to me. Or we focus on what we can't change. And that's why so many of us do have unhappiness in our lives. But God sees each of us as unique and priceless and wonderful and one of a kind, and what a great place to start. To feel joyful and to feel less guilty. And he reminds us now, in my words, you are forgiven. So the mirror. Happy to see it? Does that remind you of anyone? Guess what? I saw you in the mirror, John Lawrence. Bad luck.
That's a good looking mirror.
That's right. Well, after all the fluffing up of the clothing and the pulling out and the tucking in and the flicking of the hair and smiling at yourself, last thing you do is you smile at yourself, make it look good. We aren't that happy with ourselves, but we can change that. Remember, you've been formed and skillfully wrought by God. He doesn't make mistakes, and the good news is you can learn to be happier even if you fake it until you make it. 3 steps to be happier. Number 1, decide that you want to be more fulfilled. Isn't that a great word, fulfilled? Fulfilled. Filled. You want to be more full of God's love. Step 2, accept there's a link between doing justice and mercy, i.e. helping other people, and happiness. There is a link to people who are great helpers. They are happy in themselves, in their soul, in their stomach. They are happy. And number 3, make a decision right now that you want to be more fulfilled. What do you have to be filled with? Let's go and find out. The Reverend Max Lucado is a pastor and humorist, and he says this about Jesus. Jesus was accused of much, but he was never described as a grump, sourpuss, or self-centered jerk. People didn't groan when he appeared. He called people by name. He listened to their stories. He answered their questions. He visited their sick relatives. He fished with fishermen, and he ate lunch with the little guy. And he spoke words of resounding affirmation. He went to weddings. He went to so many weddings and parties and food things that people said, they criticized him, saying, you know, he's hanging around with people that really shouldn't hang around with. Thousands came to hear him teach. Hundreds followed him. They walked away from careers to be with him. And his purpose statement, Jesus Christ's purpose statement, is, I came to give life with joy and abundance. Joy, John 10:10. Jesus was joyful, and he wants us to be the same. So my introduction to the theme of justice suggests that we need to take an inventory of how happy we really are. Let's find out what we seek. Let's find more fulfilled, and what makes us more joyful to do it. So the topics of this story are bound to relationship. Jesus talked with people. He called them by name, met with people who were sick. Have you ever met a person who was so positive and so affirming and so friendly that after you spoke with them and you walked away from them, you think, I like that person. They are a great person. I'd like to be with them. Well, that's how people felt when they talked to Jesus. There's no reason why people can't feel the same for us in the same way. When he encouraged and chided and directed people, listen, because he engaged them in affirming and respecting them. He loved them. He gave them enduring power. The definition of fair is that people get what they need to thrive and live a fulfilled life. And justice is similar, except it includes communities, what communities need to survive and to be happy. When we engage people like Christ did, we deliver justice and mercy to that person. Before I move to a discussion of biblical justice, I want to share 3 ways that we can help others and ourselves achieve personal happiness and encourage them to do justice and to love mercy. Building enduring power for others, firstly, comes from empathy. Empathy, we express that when we focus on what the other person is feeling, looking at their face, understanding their mannerisms, hearing how they are feeling. This is tough to do because you and I listen, talk, listen, talk, listen, talk. Me too. I've done that too. You know what? it really takes some training. We have to become more empathetic and listen to those emotions. Number 2, and Proverbs 20:12 says, ears that hear and eyes that see. We get our basic equipment from God. Ears and eyes. James 1:19 says, lead with your ears and follow up with your tongue. So empathy is something we need to be better at. Enduring power comes from giving. Giving to others, especially of our own time. We have a great example of that in our own congregation with John Lawrence recently receiving that wonderful award because of the time he spends with people. People didn't ask how much he spent helping friends with compassionate friends. It's the time he spends. And we're very proud of him. And I had the newspaper here to read it to you, but if you haven't read it in Mandurah mail, you should. Even a photo of the great man right there. Well done, John. So that's from helping other people. Enduring power comes from expressing gratitude and being thankful. Not just to other people, but of course to the Lord. Rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks to all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus, from Thessalonians. Psychologists say that 2 of the most powerful things that work with people in clinical depression is writing 3 things down at the end of each day that they are thankful for. Not medication, not expensive doctors, but write 3 things down that you are grateful for. And the next thing that you can do is to do a gratitude visit. If you've never done a gratitude visit, you're missing out on one of the most wonderful challenges that you can do. Remember a person from your life, alive or not, and write them a letter of gratitude and tell them why you are thankful. And then, deliver it to them and read it to them. That really builds enduring power from expressing gratitude. Biblical justice involves making individuals and communities whole. The righteous care about justice for the poor, but the wicked have no such concern. When we talk about justice, deals with how power is used in a relationship. And you and I all use power in our relationships. And there's 4 ways of power. You could remember this, because it's only 8 words. Power over is the most common that we think of. We have power over other people. It involves coercion, domination, discrimination, control, and motivates largely through fear. Power over. Then, the other 3 are positives. Power with, shared power. Let's do this together. Power to, power to make a difference. I'm going to do something about that issue here in Mandurah. I'm going to make a difference. And power within is related to a person's self-worth. We can help somebody's self-worth by building their power within and making them a more whole person as God intended us to be fulfilled. So power is present in each of our relationships. Each of us needs to look at how we use power, because, dare I say, injustice is done by many because of the power that they use with others. We practice injustice if we repress, force, or coerce others. We practice injustice if we discriminate actively or passively against others' gender, sexuality, disability, physical appearance, nationality, employment status, age, sickness, marital status, race, language. We practice injustice if we seek to gain from corruption to others, or say nothing when we see it. We practice injustice if we abuse others by bullying, tearing down, or deflating them, forcing them to do things they don't want to. The prophets were not afraid to upset the powers that be. They developed a manner of attacking injustice. Micah shows us how. First of all, he named the offenders. Hear this, you rulers of the house of Jacob. Second thing is indictment of offenses. You abhor justice, pervert equity, you build Zion with blood. Its rulers give judgments for bribes. Rulers say, surely no harm is going to come to us. And then they finish with a threat. Therefore, because of all of you, Zion will be plowed as a field. Jerusalem will become a heap of ruins. Wow. I wish I was a little bit more like a prophet. I'm not comfortable taking on the powers that be. I wish I was a little more edgy. And then in our scripture today, Micah is writing in response to what Samaria has done. Crimes of idolatry, oppression of the poor, misuse of the power. Peter, I wonder if you could put up verse 8. Just verse 8 for us, please. And I'd like you to read verse 8 with me. 1, 2, 3, go. He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Jesus said, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but to call the sinners. An elderly grandmother was held guilty of shoplifting at a grocery store. The case was presented in front of the judge. In her defense, she confessed to her crime and said that the grocery items like rice and some lentils were taken as she was very poor and her only son had just died in an accident, leaving behind his wife and 3 children who were starving. The owner of the grocery store insisted that she be punished so that others learn a lesson not to shoplift. The judge was very kind and honest. After going through the documents, he looked up and he told the poor lady, I am sorry, but you have committed a crime, and so you are liable to criminal charges. A fine and possible jail. The poor lady had to pay a fine of $100, and if she could not pay, she would be sent to jail for 1 year, according to law. This is a true story. The judge then took a cardboard box from his desk and he put $10 in it, turned towards the court and said, each one of you here present in this court is fined $5 for letting a whole family starve until this poor grandmother was forced to steal and feed her family. The clerk will now collect the fines from all of you present. The clerk brought the collection, which was about $300 to the judge, including the fine, including from the owner of the store. The fine of $100 was paid off, and the judge gave her the remaining money so he could take care of her family until she got a job somewhere. Do you think the judge showed compassion and mercy and justice? Was he weak? Many would think he was weak. Retributive justice would explain what people who would think that she was weak. He was weak. For some, like the grocery store owner, it wasn't good enough because it wasn't an eye for an eye approach. And this is from Exodus 21. If there's serious injury, you're to take life for life, eye to eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise to bruise. Chris Marshall, head of religious studies at the University of Wellington, says, while it contains retributive components, God's justice is fundamentally a restoring and renewing justice. Knowing this, the Church is obliged to practice restorative justice in its own ranks and summon society to move in the same direction. So it's only through forgiveness and truth, which interestingly were chosen by Jeff and by Pete, which has led to justice. Truth and forgiveness, incredibly important. I had the privilege to be trained as a restorative justice facilitator for quite a few years in my school life. It was the most difficult and pressured but fulfilling time of my life. It means facing somebody who's done something and the victim and bringing them to a point where there is forgiveness. Punishment still occurs, but hope and restoration happens as a result. That's why it's called restorative justice. Back to Dr. Marshall, he says, to understand the justice theme in the Bible requires us to cross over into a very different social and political world than our own. Then, having crossed over, we need to decide what to bring back that is pertinent in our world. It's hard, it's tough, some terrible things are happening. And for people to look at that and say, and that's all the punishment he got? That's it? It's hard. But forgiveness and truth will help us understand what kind of justice that Jesus wanted us to have. Finally, it's not easy to get involved in social justice. John has had that experience, and he's very good at it, as many of you are. I have a list at the back of the door, back of the church, of 8 things that you can do to enhance or get involved more in social justice, if you wish. I'll read them quickly. Educate yourself on a particular movement. Work on your own habits and your beliefs. Research the local presence. Read the paper. Find out what's needed. Take action in your community. Go to a protest or a demonstration. Talk to people. Use social media. Volunteer your time. And donate to an impactful organization. Now, I'd like to head straight into our final song, after which there will be a